My narcissistic father's last words to me before dying.
Have you ever wondered what goes through the sick mind of a narcissist? When they're on their deathbed, do they suddenly gain clarity and apologize for a lifetime of torment? Or do they go out the same way they came in, raging against reality until their very last breath? That's what we're uncovering in today's heavy but insightful video. We'll pull back the curtain on the mental breakdown narcissists often experience as their immortality delusions come crashing down. It's not pretty, but deeply validating for any survivors still craving closure that will likely never come. So brace yourself as we dive into real anonymous stories of families being tormented by the dying narc parent or narc spouse until the bitter end. You'll be appalled, yet find strength in knowing you're not alone in this cruel cycle. But first, smash that subscribe button right now so you never miss life-saving techniques for starving these toxic people of fuel and protecting your own peace.
The immortality fantasy comes crashing down.
Let's start by understanding the delusional fantasies raging in the narcissist's mind their entire lives. At their core, they cling to an intoxicating belief that they are the exception to the rules of mortality. To a malignant narc, death is simply something that happens to flawed, ordinary peasants, not to their glorious, superior, entitled selves. They are supreme deity gods who will conquer time and age itself through the warped reality they've constructed in their minds. So when the inevitable happens, wrinkles form, bodies decay, faculties fade, this almighty immortal facade starts slipping away rapidly. And oh, the unhinged temper tantrums this unleashes. It's like watching the evil queen in Snow White look into the mirror and see her beautifully sculpted face disfigure into an ugly, wrinkled hag. The same monster she spent her whole life masking suddenly becomes impossible to repress or conceal any longer. Let's look at some anonymous, real-life cases of how monstrous and frightening this breakdown often becomes.
Narcissist Death Rages, true horror stories.
The narc wife constantly belittling her caregiver husband and creating impossible demands as she withers away. Or worse, jolting between praising him for basic tasks one minute, only to start flinging insults and dishes the next over some imaginary wrongdoing. Then there's the narc father turning on his well-meaning children one by one with cruel insults, pretending to finally take interest in their lives, only to launch into abhorrently harsh criticisms about their jobs, relationships, and unworthiness. Or the narc mother whose angelic facade melts away to reveal the same bitter, resentful shrew she always was underneath, screeching at nurses for the smallest infractions and inflicting emotional torture on anyone caring for her decrepit state. Heck, I knew a story of a narc wife who took things to an even more distressing level, intentionally soiling herself and refusing to bathe just to punish and degrade her loving husband during his nightmarish caregiving duties. The common thread? Out of their mastery over crafting false realities, narcissists go into an explosive, irrational rage at the mere thought of weakness or dependency on others. Death represents the ultimate loss of their power and control over their fake kingdoms. So as their faculties drain away, all those grandiose pretenses and masks crumble in a torrent of anger, bitterness, and downright repulsive behavior intended to punish everyone around them. Even medical professionals just trying to do their jobs get caught in the crossfire.
Prepare for one last soul-crushing discard.
Okay, so now that we understand the full extent of these death tantrums, here's the harsh reality. If you still harbored any fantasies of receiving a humble apology or closure from the narcissist on their deathbed, you can officially let that ship sail. These toxic people simply lack the self-awareness and basic empathy required to reflect meaningfully on the hurt they caused. They do not experience remorse the way a healthy human would when reckoning with their mortality. Nope. Get ready for one final callous discard typical of the narcissist's disgraceful behavior towards the end. The wife who tells her enabling husband through labored breaths, "You were never enough for me." The mother spitting venom like, "You ungrateful kids never deserved me," right before being sedated. Or the father smugly writing his scapegoat child out of the will, ensuring they receive one last cold slap while he exits laughing. This is the unfortunate reality you need to prepare for. A narcissist's scorched earth ego protection remains operational until they flatline. No deathbed confessions. No closure. Maybe if you're lucky, they'll simply ignore you altogether instead of going scorched earth. But make no mistake, the further along, they are in deteriorating, the fewer filters remain for concealing their truly vile, bottomless pit, emotional absence. Wow, that's really dark stuff. So how do we stay strong if thrust into this war zone as caregivers?
Radical self-care. Protect your peace.
I'm so glad you asked. Because having to deal with a narcissist's descent into these final abusive rages can be just as traumatizing as the original relationship, if not more. So radical self-care and boundaries are crucial. First, accept they lack the psychological ability to see your humanity and appreciate any help you provide. That way, their cruelty stings a little less when it rears its ugliness yet again. Next, remember your healing should be the one priority here, not codependently trying to finally fix a person who's already dead inside. Mentally move them into the lost cause category to avoid being gut-punched. If you absolutely must visit, set a firm timer for how long you'll subject yourself. And have an eject plan in place, whether that's a buddy waiting outside or paying cash for a getaway Lyft ride, pre-booked for a certain time. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to accomplish anything positive by enduring more abuse or wild tantrums beyond a certain point. Learn to love yourself enough to shut that circus tent and walk away. After all, the narcissist lived their whole life discarding you emotionally already. Don't let them have one last material discard from beyond the grave too, by hoovering you into trauma cesspool.
Embrace your magnificent rebirth.
I know this was a heavy, sobering topic today. Seeing a narcissist devolve into their final fog of rage against the reality they're powerless to control is incredibly dark and sad. But I also hope these real anonymous stories provide some level of validation for anyone still craving closure that won't come. These defective human beings are simply hardwired to remain devoid of accountability or growth until the very last breath. So where does that leave you, the compassionate survivor? By letting go of deathbed fantasy, you reclaim your power. You accept they already died to you long ago. It's just their body finally being forced to follow suit. More importantly, the narcissist's physical death represents your rebirth into living a life of true freedom at last, where their voice of torment gets permanently muted in your mind, where new relationships rooted in mutual love and respect can finally blossom without that toxic voice haunting you, where your compassion gets redirected inward to heal your suppressed identity. So if thrust into dealing with a narcissist's end-of-life chaos, give yourself permission to feel the full spectrum of emotions: grief, anger, relief, disgust. All of it is valid, but paramount above all else, choose to feel rebirth. The rebirth of your courageous spirit. The rebirth of your authentic life's purpose finally being prioritized. The chance to leave that emotional graveyard custodian role behind forever. Because friends, that is where the true journey of meaning lies in resurrecting the you that narcissistic abuse tried its damnedest to kill off long ago.
Subscribe for more life-changing wisdom.
I know that was some heavy subject matter to power through, but understanding the psychological realities of personality disorders like malignant narcissism is so vital. Because these stealth emotional predators inflict catastrophic psychic wounds on everyone they encounter. From the love bombing at the start through cruel devaluation down the line, it's all just one long, insidious mind game. The good news? You don't have to remain perpetually trapped in this toxic psychological warfare. With the right coping strategies and mindset adjustments, you can absolutely escape these dark relationships with your brilliant soul still intact. That's why I urge you to keep learning and growing by subscribing to this channel right now. We routinely serve up expert guides on everything from detaching from hoovering/untangling from trauma bonds, stopping psychic vampires from draining your energy, unlearning the narcissist's horrible brainwashing mantras, healing your inner child from developmental trauma, and so much more to assist you on this journey. Don't remain stuck in the narcissist's abusive cult a moment longer. Hit that subscribe button right now and join this community of survivors rising up to take their lives back. Trust me, the sweet taste of freedom and self-actualization on the other side is worth every ounce of work and pain endured to get there. Let's walk this path together and starve these toxic vampires once and for all. I'll see you in the next video's comments with more eye-opening wisdom to light your way. The narcissist's reign of terror ends today. Let the healing begin.